Hello everyone, this is Angela and welcome to my channel, Angie the ENTJ. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. In today's video, we're going to explore why the Dusties, who themselves have been divesting for decades, have so much smoke for the black women who divest. I mean, what's really the deal here? After all, black women do outnumber black men by 2 million, so it's inevitable, just based off of the numbers alone, that black women are going to date and marry outside of their community, right? So what's the deal? What's up with all of these making other groups of men look like the boogeyman when you can literally set your timer to the femicide rate currently going on in Blackistan as we speak? Why does the Dusty really have a problem with black women leaving Blackistan? Let's get right into it. See, let me help you to peep game. You got to pay attention to something. See, I swirled back when it was unpopular. Okay, when people were looking at me crazy because I was with a white man or with a Mexican or whoever I was with. So I'm not among those that are new to this. I could tell you some stuff, so let me help you to peep game. See, before the rise of the internet, social media, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth, some people would do their dirt where it wouldn't hurt. And by that I mean they were able to get away with doing stuff around people that didn't know them and that they didn't know that well, that they couldn't do where they originally came from. Okay? So back in the day, and even way back in the day, it was men more than women who would migrate away from where they grew up due to jobs such as joining the military, working at the factories in places like Detroit, or migrating into major cities, or even migrating into places where there were not a lot of black people in general. Now, before I go any further, bit of a disclaimer here. It is a normal habit in early adulthood for younger people who are outside of the gaze of their parents, outside of the gaze of their community, to experiment with those things that may be considered taboo. So I'm not here trying to make it seem that the Dusty is unique in his taboo experimentation. He is, although, unique and how he reacts when responsibility comes knocking. Something taboo could be like dating before marriage. Okay? Instead of waiting until after you're married to do the deed, for an example. Another one could be experimenting, with the happy herb. Okay? Or skipping a class in college, something along those lines. However, when a responsibility presents itself to most young people, they tend to act responsibly, with exception to the Dusty. So, two young people, they were dating before they got married, they were doing the deed, and oops, here's a pregnancy. So the next step is marriage for most young people in that situation, but not to the Dusty. When it's time to fill out job applications, normally around junior, senior year of college, when people got to get serious about what the rest of their life is about to look like. The normal young person cuts out the happy herb and the other type of herbal remedies far in advance enough to pass the urinalysis or the hair strand test, but not the Dusty. Nah, he doesn't do that. And ultimately, while the youth of other groups are walking across college graduation stages and grabbing their degrees, the Dusty is content with grabbing a broom and a mop to clean a building for minimum wage. And that's if you're lucky. That one would be considered one of the good ones. See, the Dusty is someone who wants to live off of privilege. Privilege allows the Dusty to occupy space with little to no investment. So he can be comical, he can be entertaining and so forth, and get people to like him enough so that they can overlook his flaws, his major flaws, like the fact that he's not manning up. He can, for an example, move in with an unsuspecting small town lady. Let's call her small town Sally. Pay a bill or two for her when in fact he's actually living in her home that was given to her by her family. He can drive her car until the wheels fall off, and when they have children, he can eat up the food that she has to go and get food stamps in order to obtain. Okay? This is especially true in places where black people are a rarity, where Dusties have even gone so far as to convince the non-blacks there that his own degenerative nature is normal, as in, this is black culture. Okay? When in fact, he's just a walking and talking stereotype in the flesh, who had the nerve to say that black women in general are broke, kind of like the broke boomquita types, who don't know who fathered the child that they gave birth to, who are loud and violent, and who live off of food stamps and welfare and don't have any ambitions in their lives. You know, that stereotype. So small towners, no different than other humans on the planet, will just simply trust the Dusty's insight on quote unquote black culture. I mean, after all, he is black, right? This is how dusty black males have been given a pass. They have been given grace for decades in these small towns. They hide behind people who are unfamiliar with this culture. And they just go along with it, the small towners, because he's quirky, he's funny, and he almost becomes like a mascot, like a pet. Okay? So, what happens in this situation when a black woman comes to live in the same town as the Dusty, who grew up in the same circumstances that he did, if not worse? She comes to live there with her new husband, more than likely a Brad or a Matt, that she met in college or while working offshore or in a factory or while taking a class. Okay? She owns a house, she has a car, works a good job, and has worked at her job for years. She may even have a degree, a passport, etc. What happens when she shows up in that same town? What happens when she opens a business that brings employment to that area? What happens when she's not a broke boomquita, but she's elegant, well-spoken? She smells like exotic flowers because of her perfume. Breath smells like peppermint spearmint. Hair smells like jasmine oil. She's the complete opposite of what the Dusty has been portraying her to be all these years. And she's walking and talking in the flesh too. You see, a lot of these Dusties hide away in small town America, far away from their relatives, including their own mother, including their own siblings, and especially their own children. And a black woman, especially a well-rounded black woman, will blow their cover, blow the smoke screen that he spent decades creating. See, here's the thing. A black woman, she's a woman, which means she's feminine. And the feminine nature naturally socializes. So, small talk will begin in grocery stores, Keisha comes to pick up a few groceries and she runs into the cashier. Oh, how are you doing today? I'm doing fine. How are you? Oh, you're new in town. Yeah, I just moved here. That's how it starts. Okay? It starts as soon as Keisha moves in with Matt. Someone will come to her doorstep with a cake or a plate of cookies just to say welcome. And if she shows up in the church, now the entire church, Matt's church, who many of whom may even be his own relatives, are welcoming her. Okay? And then add to it that she'll be different from everyone. She's coming from a different place, and that alone will cause other women most of whom in this situation are going to be married to men in that area, to want to socialize with her. I mean, it's natural. She's bringing different foods, different ways of thought, different ideas, different clothing choices, different interior decorating choices. She's from a different place. So naturally, other women will begin to gather around her, and she will immediately gain positive attention in most cases. So what happens when small town, let's say, small town Sherry, okay, goes back and shares what it was like hanging out with Keisha, who turned out to not be a broke bunquita. In fact, she turned out to be brilliant. She's nothing like what the Dusty has been telling them a typical black woman is for decades. So slowly but surely, this will cause the Dusty's audience to question him as a person as well as his motives. So the Dusty is panicking. See, listen, I've been from coast to coast here in this country, in the United States. I've also been to different parts of the world too. But I can definitely, for sure, tell you about the U.S., okay? And there are underperforming Dusties every single where and without fail. I don't care if you're in the middle of a desolate place, you will find them. There are Dusties who are in Montana stocking shelves at Walmart, riding around on bicycles because they can't keep a license due to driving under the influence, or they're owing back child support in Georgia, but they're here in Montana hiding away. They're in Wyoming, they're in Idaho, okay? They're in North Dakota, walking around in the grocery store with their hand baskets, looking confused about how they're going to spend their last $10 to find food since they don't have enough money to afford to buy fast food every day. They are in New Mexico getting into fights and getting locked up behind fighting another dude over a woman.
State police say a man was shot and killed following a graduation party in Tucumcari. It happened on Saturday night just before 10. Police say they responded to Cemetery Road for a shooting, and when they arrived, they say they found 46-year-old Michael Arellano suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Agents believe a fight between two men at a graduation party led to the shooting, and that the suspect, Garrett, followed Arellano, where they reportedly got into another altercation leading to the deadly shooting. Arellano was pronounced dead at a local hospital, and 42-year-old Garrett is facing a first-degree murder charge.
So much about the myth that they have options, okay? That everybody is falling over. See, I've been to these places where they are, and I see how it is, okay? So let's go into the mind of a Dusty for a moment. Let's examine his thought process. First of all, he's a narcissist. And all narcissistic people put up a false image, a smokescreen that masks who they truly are. So the Dusty has spent years crafting this fakery, right? So all the people in the small community he drifted into knows him, thinks that he's just quirky, and assumes that because of the things he's telling them and the things that he's showing them, that's just how all black people are, right? Then here you come along. You, Keisha, you're using words that require 3 or more syllables. You speak clearly. You enunciate your words very well, okay? You can go into a deep conversation about world events. You have credentials. You may even be among the highest income earners they have ever seen, depending. Imagine you pull up in a Mercedes or a BMW that you bought, okay? Meanwhile, the Dusty is walking, or he's riding around on a bicycle. You are younger than he is. He's old and graying. You're dressed well, you're polished from head to toe. You're looking like someone who's fresh from the cover of a magazine. Meanwhile, as a contrast, the Dusty woke up and got out of bed. You know, depending on the type of Dusty he is, he might have walked out of the door as is that day because he slept in the same clothes that he's been wearing for the past 3 days straight. No bath, No, nothing. Just get up and walk around, ride his bike all day, and then come back. Lay down on the bed, lay down on the couch, whatever. Okay? Or in the case of a Dusty whose mother made him bathe daily, bless her heart, as a child, because I know she had a fight on her hands when he was a kid and didn't want to bathe. Now, as an adult, he woke up, he took off his boxers, flipped them inside out, and then put them back on. He picked up his pants from the back of the chair where his coat was also hanging and threw them back on for the 5th day in a row. He throws on a clean, in quotes, t-shirt that was washed in cheap detergent that still smells like underarms and feet. But he has not worn it this week, so therefore it's clean. Again, clean in quotes. And he hides his matted, uncut, unwashed hair in a baseball cap that has never been washed since the day somebody gave it to him, secondhand. And it's covered in a dingy patina of sweat, scalp flakes, and earwax. He's been like this since the day that he wandered into that small town. Because, see, he wants to experiment with the taboo. This is who he really is. But he can't be that way where he's from because, people will call him out. So he wandered into the small town and he put up this smoke screen. So everyone there thinks that it's normal for black people to be like this. You understand? So if you show up where he is, that completely blows the smoke away. This is why you have Dusties all over social media talking about how bad a black woman's punana stinks. It's because they have to keep the cover up, even though their eye crust, yellow teeth, and ball stench is strong enough to wake a bear out of hibernation. It will not be long before the spotlight is on you in a positive light, and the Dusty becomes irrelevant. In fact, some may even become suspicious of him. Right? So all of that is going to cast a shadow of doubt upon him, because that's human nature to make comparisons. It won't be long before people will be delighted by your presence and curious about you. See, Dusties are like children. And when he sees you, quote unquote, taking his attention, he's going to become jealous. Not only that, the way that he will see it is that you will be messing up his access to easy punana, that meow, that he was able to gain access to by being by being the only or at least one of a few black males around, that he was able to get to just by being goofy and silly and entertaining. Okay? See, you showing up is going to cause a bunch of questions to be asked, and your presence is a threat to his privilege. And heaven help the Dusty if you show up into his territory, his territory in quotes, and you know how to cook, and you start hosting, gatherings at your place. People will be looking forward to enjoying your food. You will be the talk of the town. You will be getting invited to different events in the area, and they'll be asking you to bring that special dish, that special cake, whatever it is that you do. And you will even be invited outside of the town. Some of these people like to go camping and taking like mini vacations. It's a beautiful country out here, that you can travel to. My husband and I, we just came from the Bonneville salt flats, where we got some salt. We gathered some of the salt. I gathered some of the clay, although it did have like a sulfur after smell, so you got to be aware of that. But yeah, it's a beautiful country out here. So people like to go and see different things, go places, do things, and they'll be inviting you along with them. See, I can go on. Let's talk about the children for a little bit. See, the Dusties biracial children are usually neglected as far as their upkeep. They normally do not know anything about how to properly take care of themselves as far as taking care of their skin, taking care of their hair. Their hair is a matted mess just like their dad's. Their skin is dry and ashy, just like their dad. And not only do they stand out for being different in a place where hardly anybody looks like them, but also it casts a shadow on them because they are not as well groomed as they should be, and a lot of times they get bullied as a result. Now, as a contrast, here comes Keisha's biracial children. The daughter's hair is done up in a bespoke style that can only be achieved with her hair texture. You know, so again, spotlight, positive spotlight shined as a result of Keisha. The minute you arrive in town, average Keisha is the average black woman, by the way. You already have 2 businesses waiting for you to open that you can run out of your home, or even rent a little small storefront, or even a large one. Okay? One is cooking your food and the other one is doing hair. You will be making money hand over fist. Okay? And it will make the Dusty look like his true self, which is bad. Okay? I can go on, but I wanted this video to be brief as to why the Dusty, who has been hiding in small towns for ages, does not want you to divest. And I know that there will be naysayers that will state that not all the black men in small towns in general are dusty. And to that, as a person who is logically inclined, I will say that statement is true. Because technically, if there are 1,000 people and only 3 of them are dusty, then that means that 997 people are not dusty. So that qualifies as a quote-unquote not all. However, in the case of dusties in this particular situation, let's say there are 5 black men in a small town. Well, 4 of them are going to be dusty. This means that the 1 black man out of the 5 in said town may actually be a hard-working man who is honorable. So technically, yes, it's true in such an example that quote-unquote not all black men fall into the dusty category. However, just because one is not dusty, that is not a good enough of a reason to be silent about the majority who are dusty. That's what I have to say to those who say quote-unquote not all, because they're the ones that hide behind the claim to intellectual honesty as a means to silence the truth of what is being said about the dusties. Okay, so that's all I have for now. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the notifications bell so that you will know whenever I upload any new content. Take care until next time.